busting everybody's door.
Who was he
He
out here
busted to my light. And look at the garbage cans.
Who was he fighting with out here?
My fiance. He went for a walk, cool down.
Who's your fiance?
Steve Riley.
Steve Riley?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your name?
I'm Ina.
Okay. Is your fiance hurt at all?
He got a gash on his forehead.
Okay. You know, we just want to talk with him too, just to make sure he's all right if possible. There's blood all the way over there. That's good. So what actually happened tonight? What were they fighting over?
Chad was kind of kicking the door.
Just for no reason, or just
drunk. He does that.
Where do you think your fiance?
He gets his inheritance this afternoon. That's why we're moving. We're going to pay all our bills off that we need to pay off and then take a long vacation.
He was set to receive his inheritance that very afternoon. That was the plan, to pay off every outstanding bill, pack up, move away, and finally take the long vacation they had always talked about. But less than 24 hours after this footage was recorded, everything changed. Steve Riley suddenly became violently ill. What seemed minor at first escalated quickly. Within an hour, his body was completely immobilized. He was airlifted to the hospital, but it was too late. Shortly after arriving, Steve was pronounced dead. At first, it looked like a tragic and unexpected medical emergency. But what police didn't realize at that moment was that Ina wasn't just a grieving fiancée. She was also a convincing performer. And she knew far more about Steve's sudden illness than she was letting on. Steve was less than an hour away from collecting a staggering $37 million inheritance when he collapsed. As detectives would later uncover, his death wasn't natural at all. Someone had deliberately killed him. And the shocking part? Nearly everyone close to Steve had a desperate reason to want access to his newfound fortune, no matter the cost. It was like 20-something million, someone would later say. Best thing you can do is get on a plane and never look back. Now rewind to the night before Steve died. Police body camera footage captured officers responding to a disturbance call. Steve and Ina's drunken neighbor had been harassing residents in the neighborhood. Ina called 911 to calm the situation. But what makes this footage significant isn't the neighbor. It's Ina. Because during this interaction, she casually mentions the massive inheritance Steve is about to receive, money he's just hours away from collecting. At the time, officers had no idea how important that detail would become. In the footage, Ina explains that their neighbor, Chad, was drunk and trying to kick in doors. She claims he fought with Steve and damaged property. She says Steve went for a walk to cool off. She assures officers that he only has a small scratch on his forehead and isn't seriously hurt. But within a day, Steve would be dead. And as investigators dug deeper over the following weeks, they discovered something chilling. Steve's fatal illness was no accident. It was carefully orchestrated. The inheritance wasn't just life-changing, it was motive. At first, AA insists they don't even have a phone yet, that they won't get one until later that afternoon. But moments later, she lets something slip. She begins talking about money. Not just a little money, life-changing money. Almost casually, she reveals that Steve is set to receive his inheritance that very afternoon. That's why they're planning to move. That's why everything is about to change. According to her, Steve's lawyer is arriving at 2 p.m. to finalize the paperwork. Once it's signed, they'll immediately pay off every outstanding bill that has piled up over the years. Court fines, child support, debts, all of it cleared in one sweep. After that, a long vacation. AA can't hide her excitement. She makes it clear this isn't just financial relief, it's a complete transformation of their lives. What officers don't realize at the time is just how massive this inheritance supposedly is. Years earlier, back in 2016, a man named Marcus Riley contacted one of Steve's friends. He claimed to be Steve's long-lost uncle from Ireland. After reconnecting, Steve learned that he was the sole heir to his uncle's estate, an inheritance estimated at over $17 million. At the time, that amount alone would have erased all of Steve and AA's financial struggles. But the story didn't end there. 4 months later, Steve was contacted again, this time by a British lawyer. His uncle had passed away. And due to years of successful investments, the original $17 million had reportedly grown to more than $30 million. The questioning began with inconsistencies. Earlier that morning, she had claimed Steve was at a walk-in clinic, but detectives quickly challenged that. They told her Steve wasn't at a clinic, he was at the hospital. She pushed back. No, he hadn't been admitted. He had just left in an ambulance when Wes arrived. But that wasn't what investigators had uncovered. According to timestamps and reports, Wes had already been there before the ambulance ever left. The timeline didn't match her story. And she knew it. As detectives closed in and her explanations unraveled, AA realized she was running out of ways to defend herself. That's when she made a strategic move. She asked for a lawyer.
Barely drinking any water.
So he consumed almost a case of beer in...
Oh, he can drink more than that. I've seen him drink a couple cases.
But on that day...
Yeah, it was a case of beer.
From probably 6 or 7 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, so 5 to 6 hours. Does that sound right?
Probably.
Okay. Did you drink anything else?
Just a glass of water that I brought him, and his tea. I made iced tea because he begged for iced tea. He would not contact me back.
Okay.
Personally. That I'm his girlfriend, wife type thing.
Yep.
And he would like to contact you. Is there a way to contact you? You know, through legal means, like inheritance lawyer or something here.
Okay.
But he never, he, all of a sudden the email disappeared. Like it didn't exist.
The address? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that? Do you remember?
Pretty much when I told him he was in the hospital.
Okay.
The emails wouldn't go through anymore. It was saying it never existed.
Okay. So it was foreign, the uncle's foreign and the money is in a foreign account.
Yeah.
And so how is he going to get the money? What was the plan?
Well, the lawyer guy wanted to give him to get a bank account.
The lawyer
originally.
Okay, so he wanted
so he could just deposit it into his bank account.
Okay.
It couldn't be nobody else's bank account.
Sure.
According to the lawyer.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I can give you a few bucks, you know. I paid to get his birth certificate so he can go get his ID and his Social Security.
Okay.
Everything runs, with my brain injury, everything kind of smushes and, you know.
Yeah, she was just saying that about 6 months, maybe a year ago, there was a prior ambulance call up there where it was maybe heat stroke, but Steve said that he thinks he might have accidentally drank some kind of fluid from the garage while working on a car.
So I just have a lot of concerns here, okay, and I'm just going to be honest with you. You told the paramedics when they were there that morning or afternoon that he had been drinking till 5 in the morning, that he had been consuming alcohol. That's on body cam. Okay, you said he was drinking all day the day before and that he drank his last drink at 5 a.m. Okay, and now you're telling me
tea.
that's not what you say on this video. okay?
I want to see this video.
Okay, well, I'm not going to show you the body cam. I'm just telling you that that's what's on there. There's reports that Wes came to the house that morning, and you said that Steve was at the walk-in clinic. He wasn't at the walk-in clinic.
Steve didn't want to see Wes anymore.
Okay, but Steve wasn't at the walk-in clinic.
He was at the hospital.
He wasn't at the hospital. He wasn't anywhere yet. Because
he was
it's been verified. He wasn't when Wes was there, okay? He
just left with the ambulance when Wes showed up there.
That's not what's been reported to us. Wes was there prior to.
Yeah, the timestamps prove that.
I want a lawyer.
Okay, that's fine.
Am I being arrested?
Nope, you're not being arrested. We're just talking. So, but if you want a lawyer, we can stop talking right now. That's fine.
But I'm telling you the God honest truth.
Okay.
I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I wish I was there. I wish I was with him every second of the day that day. I wish I watched every single, but I'm not his goddamn mom.
You asked for a lawyer, Ina, so we're just going to end this now. Okay, I'm not going to talk anymore. All right?
You guys are so unbelievable. Fucking serious.
This way, right here.
Am I being arrested? She asked. No, the detective replied calmly. We're just talking. But if you want an attorney, we'll stop. She insisted she was telling the truth, claimed she didn't know what happened, said she wished she had been there every second of that day. But then her composure cracked. I'm not his goddamn mum. The moment she invoked her right to counsel, the interview ended. As soon as she realized the detective saw straight through her version of events, she folded hiding behind legal protection as a final shield. After that interrogation, AA remained free for a short time while investigators worked tirelessly to build a concrete case. She continued proclaiming her innocence, offering increasingly bizarre theories. At one point, she suggested Steve might have drunk antifreeze out of shame after discovering his lawyer was a fraud. In another claim, she implied she too had been poisoned months earlier. But the evidence told a different story. Police executed a search warrant at apartment 912A. Inside, they found disturbing items, an old Windex bottle without a cap containing a bright green liquid suspected to be antifreeze. A Coors Light bottle hidden in the garage, the same garage where Steve had been working that morning, also containing antifreeze. Investigators determined that this Coors Light bottle was the delivery method. Antifreeze contains ethylene glycol, a chemical compound with a deceptively sweet taste. When mixed into tea, it becomes nearly undetectable. Steve would have had no way of distinguishing it from his normal morning drink. And by pouring the liquid into a dark beer bottle, the bright green color was concealed. The deception was calculated. With mounting physical evidence, documented lies, and multiple contradictions in her statements, detectives had enough. On October 30th, 2024, AA was arrested. As officers took her into custody, she pleaded, "Can I lock up my house?" They assured her they would. She asked to smoke a cigarette. She insisted she had never been arrested before. Said she had done nothing wrong. Claimed she was being made a scapegoat. "If I was going to kill him," she said, "I would have done it the day I found out he was doing drugs." She worried about the dogs left behind. Asked how long she'd be held. There were no clear answers. 6 months later, AA appeared in court one final time. For the entirety of the investigation, she had maintained her innocence, no matter how implausible her explanations became. But in the courtroom, faced with overwhelming evidence, she accepted a plea deal. AA Thea Kanua was convicted of murder intentional, knowing, and with extreme indifference to human life. She was sentenced to life in prison. Her first opportunity for probation will come in 2050, and with that, the case of Steve Riley reached its final chapter. Suddenly, AA's boasting makes more sense. By the next day, they believe they'll be multimillionaires. The plan? Claim the $30 million and relocate to Ireland, where they would reunite with Steve's extended family, even joking about living in castles. As officers prepare to leave for the night, AA makes one last confident remark about their future. If Steve returns, they ask her to have him call so they can get his side of the story. She assures them he'll stop by anyway. She even mentions she's only been able to put $5 toward his fine so far, but soon, she says, they'll pay everything off all at once. All of it. That night, Steve returns to the apartment. The two of them wait together, unable to sleep, counting down the hours. By this time tomorrow, they believe they'll be rich. They're just waiting for the money to arrive. The plan for the day seemed straightforward. At exactly 2 p.m., the group was supposed to head to the airport to meet their lawyer, who was flying in with the official paperwork for their long-awaited inheritance. Steve agreed to go, arriving at the airport with AA and their two friends, Billy and Wes. They waited patiently inside the terminal, expecting good news and a fresh start. But while they waited, something began to go terribly wrong. Steve suddenly started feeling unwell. He said he felt strange, almost drunk, and soon became violently sick, vomiting in the airport restroom. His heart was racing, and his condition deteriorated rapidly. It became clear this wasn't something minor concerned. Wes decided to drive Steve back home so he could rest and recover. Meanwhile, AA stayed behind at the airport, continuing to wait for the lawyer. The lawyer never arrived. Hours passed. There was no paperwork, no inheritance money, and no explanation. Eventually, AA gave up waiting and returned home, now dealing not only with disappointment, but with a fiancée whose health was spiraling out of control. At first, everyone assumed Steve was suffering from heat stroke. He had been working on his truck for hours earlier that morning, and he had experienced heat exhaustion before. But this time was different. His symptoms were far more severe than anything he had dealt with in the past. As the night progressed, his condition worsened. He showed alarming signs consistent with kidney failure. By morning, Steve was completely unresponsive. Panicked, AA called 911. Through tears and desperation, she told the dispatcher that her husband had suffered heat stroke the day before and now wouldn't wake up. She tried ice water. She tried everything she could think of. He was breathing, but barely responsive. He wouldn't speak. He wouldn't open his eyes. Emergency responders rushed to the home. Inside, officers found Steve unconscious amid clutter and trash. They pulled him from the house and transported him to the nearest hospital. His condition was so critical that doctors quickly arranged for him to be airlifted to St. Alexis Hospital for more advanced treatment. At the hospital, AA explained to officers that Steve's collapse was the result of heat stroke. Given the circumstances, authorities had no immediate reason to doubt her. They offered comfort and support while doctors worked to stabilize him. But tragically, Steve would never regain consciousness again. Billy Burkhead had been with Steve the entire day. He was Steve and AA's neighbor, not just a casual acquaintance, but someone who had worked alongside Steve that very afternoon. They had been fixing a truck together. They had traveled to the airport together. And at no point did Steve seem sick. That's why Billy couldn't accept the official explanation. Heat stroke? It didn't make sense. Steve had appeared perfectly fine all day up until they reached the airport. Then suddenly, his body shut down. Within hours, he was gone. Billy believed something far darker had happened. The very next day, he called detectives back to apartment 912A to share what he believed was the truth.
How long are you going to stay here?
I'll stay here until the sun gets here.
Oh. When's the sun supposed to get here?
He's not dead. I told you.
Stop!
He's not.
He's dead.
I just killed his son.
And he was poisoned.
He went to every clinic yesterday. He wasn't around. Went to the hospital. He wasn't there. He come back up here, knocked on the door. She wouldn't answer. And he hollered through the door. He said, he's not at none of them places. Well, as soon as he left, and he got almost by Walmart, she called the ambulance. Took him to the hospital.
How long
We
ago
think
was
she
this?
poisoned
Yesterday.
him. I'm almost sure she poisoned him. His voice was firm. He wasn't guessing, he was convinced. Billy explained that after returning from the airport, Steve was so weak they had to help him out of the car and into the house. Yet the next morning, AA was seen throwing Steve's belongings out into the yard. And according to Billy, she never called for medical help like she claimed. That detail changed everything. If AA had poisoned Steve, his symptoms suddenly made far more sense than heat stroke ever could. But the obvious question remained. Why would she do it? They were supposedly about to receive a life-changing inheritance. A fresh start, a better life. Billy claimed he knew the answer. He believed AA planned to leave Steve once the money came through. According to him, she had already begun separating herself from him, even discarding his things. And then things escalated. AA overheard the accusations. She stormed outside, furious, calling the neighbors nasty people and insisting they were lying. But tensions rose even further when officers, preparing to leave, accidentally revealed something devastating.
Okay. He is. I thought everybody knew. Sorry.
Don't tell me anything. Oh my God!
I guess the sun is on his way here. Okay. Apparently the sun is on the way here. So.
The sun better put them on.
Yeah. Do you know the sun? You know the sun? Yeah?
I haven't seen him since he was 5.
You what?
I haven't seen him since he was 5.
Oh, wow, okay. All right. Well, we're going to go. You guys just leave each other alone. Everything will be fine. Okay? All righty.
Steve had died. AA's reaction stunned everyone. At first, she collapsed into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. Then, almost instantly, she returned to normal. Composed. Detached, as if she hadn't just heard that her husband was gone. It was unsettling. And Billy wasn't the only one pointing fingers. His wife, Lynn, came forward with something even more chilling. She claimed AA had once said that if she ever wanted to kill her partner, she would poison him using antifreeze. That statement would soon become critical. Toxicology results came back. Steve's bloodstream contained lethal levels of ethylene glycol, the main ingredient in antifreeze. This was no longer a suspicious death. It was a homicide investigation. Detectives began questioning everyone connected to the case, including AA. But before they could build their case fully, AA made another move. She called police back to the apartment. This time, she had her own theories.
Of her own.
This is property that Steve was buying after his inheritance got here.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to, I think he left it to his son, but I had to Google where to go to get his inheritance switched over to the people he left it to. I don't know.
Okay. Who actually is the owner of this truck?
Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in his name.
It's in his name?
Yeah, the title's coming. Yeah, we were going to get all his fines paid off, get both of our license, get some new cars,
Okay.
go to Ireland, get married, stay in his family castle or whatever, because that's what he wanted to do.
Wow.
And the day he was supposed to meet his lawyer at the airport, apparently I thought it was heat stroke. And he said it was heat stroke. That was the last day I talked to him.
Okay.
But the last thing he said was get a restraining order against Wes and the property and make sure you don't get paid. That change it over. And that I was right about his friends. Because when I left him a while back, like a year ago, I told him, you gotta go with me. Your friends are gonna fucking kill you. You gotta leave them. I don't care if you're here, but get a real job and don't ever talk to them again, because they will kill you. Apparently he was poisoned.
All right.
And I don't know how to get a hold of the guy in London with his inheritance. He should be here in town. I don't understand, so why he never showed up at the airport. So trying to figure out why.
A lot going on.
She suggested Steve might have drunk the antifreeze himself, or perhaps someone else had poisoned him. But despite discussing the poisoning, she repeatedly drifted back to one topic, the inheritance. She talked about lawyers, about paperwork, about transferring money, about beneficiaries. It was as if the inheritance mattered more than the death. Investigators found the suicide theory unlikely. Steve had been hours away from claiming a significant sum of money. Why would he ingest antifreeze right before collecting it? Still, police kept their minds open. They brought in another neighbor, Rebecca. Rebecca had been deeply involved from the start, frequently offering her opinions to detectives. But during her interview, things took an unexpected turn. Instead of focusing on Steve's death, she began talking about demons, about spirits following her daughter, about supernatural forces changing her child. It was bizarre. Investigators now faced a tangled web of accusations, paranoia, strange behavior, and mounting evidence. But one thing was becoming increasingly clear. Steve Riley hadn't died from heat stroke. Someone had poisoned him. And the closer detectives looked, the more sinister the truth appeared to be. One neighbor's strange comment stood out immediately. Mentioning something as odd as checking your daughter's body to prove innocence wasn't exactly a normal reaction. But the detective wasn't there to judge bizarre remarks. He was there to uncover the truth behind Steve's sudden death. So he let it slide for now. The woman speaking described herself proudly as a nosy neighbor. She knew which cars belonged in the neighborhood and which didn't. She knew who lived there and who didn't. And according to her, she had been watching Steve and Ina for nearly 2 years. The first year, she said, Steve seemed fine, healthy, doing well. But the second year, everything changed. Steve began losing weight. He seemed withdrawn. There were whispers of drug use, alcohol, depression. The neighbor even suggested Ina's mental health had declined dramatically during that time. Things she claimed had grown worse in the final months before his death. At first glance, Steve's life appeared straightforward. But the deeper detectives looked, the more cracks they saw: addiction issues, emotional instability, and mounting tension at home. Steve had told people he was expecting an inheritance roughly $2 million. But that number, investigators would later discover, was nowhere near the truth. According to the neighbor, Steve once said his uncle's estate was initially being left to Ina, but after arguments between them, he claimed he changed the will. He allegedly told her, "Don't tell Ina, but I switched it." That statement echoed something detectives had already heard, that Ina herself had been trying to adjust the will in her favor. If she knew Steve planned to cut her out, that would have given her a powerful motive. The timeline made things more suspicious. 5 months before his death, Steve told people he was leaving everything to Ina. Just 2 months later, after more fighting, he allegedly said she would get nothing. He even talked openly about leaving her once the money came in, moving away, possibly back to California. Steve's son later confirmed this. He said his father spoke constantly about receiving a large inheritance, not $2 million, but something closer to $20 million.
He was talking about how he was getting a large sum of money.
Okay.
And he said whenever that came through with his lawyer or whatever, he was gonna take that truck that he had in the garage that he was working on for me.
Yeah.
Drive that down to Texas, give me the information, because he had set up like a trust fund for me and my brothers, supposedly.
Okay.
And he kind of just wanted to leave her because she didn't really have a job and was like leeching off of him.
Okay.
Just laid around all day.
So he wanted to leave, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Did Steve ever talk about leaving Ina?
All the time.
Okay.
Every day. Every day.
Do you think she knew about that?
Mm-hmm.
She did. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to start over. He felt Ina depended on him financially and resented his close relationship with his son and friend. Billy supported that claim. He said Steve talked about leaving Ina almost daily. He described growing tension and jealousy in the household. And then there was something else. The night Steve's son visited the apartment, Ina reportedly knocked on the neighbor's door while he was there. She seemed upset, nervous, angry that he had gone upstairs. According to the neighbor, Ina told her directly that she had found will papers. It was clear. She was preoccupied with the inheritance. But then, detectives uncovered something that changed the entire case. The inheritance didn't exist. The documents contained mismatched fonts. Emails bounced back, undeliverable. The so-called lawyer never appeared. It all pointed to one painful conclusion. Steve had been living under the illusion of a massive inheritance for 7 years. It was a scam. He endured years of difficult living conditions, believing patience would one day reward him with unimaginable wealth. And tragically, that false promise may have been the very thing that fueled the tension leading to his death. Nearly every interview pointed suspicion toward Ina.
Well, he said the original was like 21 or 27 million, but he said it had just sat in this account, so it had accumulated interest is what he...
For years it sat without adding the interest in. Then,
Steve, have you heard from him? Well, my phone's gone again, you know. Well, then he'd get another phone. Well, then we'd give him some money for some food and to get some more minutes on his phone.
Now, it's either Link or Billy told me that when this first realized that she might be doing something, his phone disappeared.
Okay.
And Steve did lose things occasionally, but his phone disappeared and he didn't find it for a long time. They must have got a different burner phone or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, I think there were probably 3 phones in the house that night when I took them back from
the airport.
From the airport, yeah. And she had one. but her information got transferred from his phone.
Fear of being cut out of the will, her fixation on the money, her hostility toward Steve's son and Billy. Yet detectives also knew something critical. One neighbor's testimony was unreliable. She had provided nearly 40 minutes of false information that investigators had already dismissed. She thrived on neighborhood drama. So they sought more credible sources, Steve's son, Ryan, and his close friend, Billy. After days of interviews and mounting evidence, detectives finally prepared to confront Ina directly. They believed they had enough. But even with motive, witness statements, and a crumbling financial fantasy at the center of it all, proving what truly happened to Steve would be far more complicated than anyone expected. Prosecutors knew they were facing an uphill battle. Without a confession or damaging statements, charging AA would be extremely difficult.
Wasn't in the picture that she would be entitled to any settlement money through that common law marriage. That kind of changed as the investigators informed her that we don't have common law marriage in North Dakota. Yeah, everything that we have indicates that that settlement doesn't exist. There wasn't a long-lost rich relative or any other type of settlement that would lead to $30 million going in the direction of the victim. But that was
so investigators set out with one clear objective: get her talking. Inside a shortened 90-minute interrogation, detectives used some of the most strategic and calculated questioning techniques ever seen on this channel. Piece by piece, they chipped away at AA's story, slowly dismantling it until all that remained was a tangled web of contradictions. They began calmly. Detectives explained they had been speaking with everyone who knew Steve, including Billy, West trying to understand the bigger picture of Steve's life. AA confirmed she and Steve had been together for 13 years. They met at a Hess Shelter buffet dinner in Washington. The conversation started as routine background gathering, but it didn't take long for AA to begin steering suspicion elsewhere. She insisted she had begged Steve to stay away from Billy and Lynn. According to her, they were nasty people with felony records, people involved in breaking into places and using drugs beyond marijuana. When asked directly whether Steve used drugs, AA hesitated. At first, she claimed he was allergic to marijuana. Then she suggested that after the last time, he decided to do whatever he wanted. She implied his drug use only started because of outside influence, particularly Billy. But this was the first clear deception of the interrogation. AA already knew Steve had been using long before the incident she described. Yet she attempted to rewrite history, positioning Billy as the catalyst. Her body language revealed the strain. She avoided eye contact. She glanced upward repeatedly. She fidgeted, scratched at her skin, stumbled over her words, and slurred slightly classic indicators of someone fabricating details in real time. Then detectives shifted gears. They asked about the inheritance. Steve had supposedly learned about it 3 or 4 months earlier. According to AA, a lawyer from London contacted him regarding a massive family inheritance tied to a relative, Marcus Riley, an uncle in Ireland. The amount? Originally $17.5 million. After property sales, $37 million. The story sounded dramatic, even bizarre. AA claimed the money had some kind of curse, mentioning that previous family members who pursued it had died, including a 21-year-old. She said the lawyer kept setting times to meet at the airport, but never showed. Steve would go, "Wait," and later receive emails postponing the meeting again. For 25 minutes, detectives tried to lock down her timeline for the day they were supposed to collect the inheritance. But her story kept shifting. Instead, she claimed Wes went in his place. Why? because Steve was drinking heavily all day. According to AA, he started drinking beer around 6 or 7 in the morning while working in the garage, spray painting his truck doors and windows closed, barely drinking water. She claimed he consumed nearly an entire case of beer by early afternoon. Detectives pressed her. Was that accurate? She doubled down. Maybe a case. Maybe more. She added that he had a glass of water and some iced tea she made for him. But investigators already knew something she didn't expect. Toxicology results showed Steve had no trace of alcohol in his system on the day of his death. That's when the tone shifted. Detectives confronted her directly. They reminded her that she had previously told paramedics on body cam that Steve had been drinking until 5 a.m. and had consumed alcohol all day prior. Now she was changing her story. They informed her those statements were recorded. AA demanded to see the footage. Detectives refused, calmly reiterating what was documented. The cracks were widening. Her carefully constructed narrative about drugs, the inheritance, the airport, and the drinking was beginning to collapse under the weight of evidence. And this was only the beginning of the unraveling. Please don't forget to subscribe on True Crime Story Achieve.